These are the most insane punishments used on children. Today's kids may think they have it bad when their parents take away their phones or their instructors call home to tattle, but Aztec kids were hung over scorching chillis for disobedience. Think you have it tough? Why not try some of the worst childhood punishments? Let's begin. Victorian England may have dominated child abuse. In the 19th century, children were punished the same as adults, even for crimes. Children convicted of larceny might be imprisoned in an adult prison, made to work for months, or deported to the penal colonies. In extreme situations, 12-year-olds can be hanged and executed for their offenses. The Industrial Revolution swamped Victorian cities with inhabitants from the countryside, increasing crime and crowding. This worried rich upper and middle-class residents who created Victorian England's policies on criminals, including minors sent as criminals to Australia. Out of sight, out of mind. 806 ships carried 162,000 prisoners to Australia between 1788 and 1850. Victorian England regarded juvenile criminals the same as adults, therefore many children were shipped to the New World. A ship going for an Australian penal colony in 1873 carried several juvenile convicts. For offenses like stealing from their master or stealing a coat and boots, kids as young as 13 were condemned to 7 years or more in a penal colony halfway around the world. Victorian England eventually became uncomfortable with their brutal child punishment. After public outrage, the government developed reformatory schools to rehabilitate criminal youngsters more humanely. These schools were designed to isolate troubled kids from their families and surroundings for several years. Reformatory schools were known for their harsh punishment, including beatings, free labor, and isolating runaways. Some shocking 1873 court documents show how brutal these sentences were. Child punishment gets stranger as history progresses. Aztec child rearing was unusual and brutal. Aztec children who disobeyed their parents may be burned. Naughty Aztec youngsters who displeased their parents were forced to hang over a tiny fire of flaming habanero peppers. This strange punishment burned the child's eyes and skin and caused considerable distress. Long-term exposure may produce severe crying, skin irritations, burning sensations, coughing, and breathing problems. As if this wasn't enough, Aztec parents would leave unruly youngsters outside overnight or scar them with cactus needles as a lasting reminder. It's true that kids throughout history were abused at home, but it wasn't simply their parents. For youngsters with too strict parents, the school may be a break from home, but in the past it was just as harsh. Teachers had complete control over their students and were allowed and encouraged to employ corporal punishment to teach correct behavior and prepare them for the harsh realities of life. Teachers in the early 20th century treated misbehaving students like they would at home. Teachers worldwide used hickory branch switches, leather straps, or yardsticks to punish misbehavior, including talking out of turn, disturbing class, or daydreaming. Students might even be penalized for not learning. Children who struggle to keep up with their peers could be sent to the corner of the room and forced to sit on a stool in front of the class while wearing a dunce cap, a huge cone-shaped headgear meant to humiliate them. The insults conehead and blockhead come from this despicable habit. Some poor kids were tortured at employment as well as at home and school. As the Industrial Revolution began in the 17th and 18th centuries, there were no regulations protecting employees, let alone child laborers. Child laborers were popular since factory owners were unregulated. For one thing, children were paid 10% of what adults were paid for the same work. Children were favored because they were more docile and easier to control and abuse than adults. In the 18th century, many youngsters, especially orphans, worked hard for a living. Victorian factories were filthy and punished children as young as 6. Many child laborers resided at the plant and worked 14-hour days in horrendous conditions. Overcrowded, filthy, and disease-ridden factories and dorms, their overseers created brutally effective tactics to punish runaways to prevent these poor, exhausted kids from even considering escape. Runaway or flight risk children were imprisoned, and the child had to walk, work, and sleep in chains. And if they still ran away, young children could be jailed for trying to escape workplace life. If you thought this video was horrifying, you'll definitely want to check out our other videos. Thank you for watching. We look forward to catching up with you in our next video.